All right. So, do you want me to start, I guess? All right. So, um, I basically will just kind of go over a little bit of the preface to this question, but basically, one question that I am really curious about, and one thing that really important to me, is to understand what a fulfilling life looks like, because that's kind of what my core mission or whatever it is, my core values, whatever it is. Um, my North Star in life is I want to try and help people get there, help people get to a fulfilling life. And so recently I've been trying to figure out what does a fulfilling life look like. And I've been asking a bunch of people from a bunch of different like domains and areas in my life, right? And I found that people find a fulfilling life in a bunch of different places and practices. Some find them in God. Some people find it in their communities and stuff like that. Um, and so they have like these different strategies. What I found is that there's kind of like these underlying needs that are shared. And so the question of what is fulfilling life, I feel like ultimately, because the strategies are so diverse, are is like to its core like an idiographic question. And just to say that it really depends on the person, right? Like if from person to person that's going to change. But there's this kind of like shared needs. And I think I was just kind of curious, like, what was your thoughts on what does a fulfilling life look like in meeting that kind of the shared needs beyond kind of the individual strategies that we use?
So, Ben, I'm thinking that a definition of a fulfilled life to me means that someone is aligned in terms of their mind, their heart, their body, their spirit, and if they believe in souls, their soul.
Mm,
So, if you're misaligned in any of those ways, I don't think you can feel fulfilled. So, whatever it is that people want, let's say somebody needs to have they need to make a certain amount of money, and so that's what they're thinking, oh, that's fulfilling to me. But
mhm,
then they're not sleeping well and they're sick all the time. That to me tells me that something's misaligned.
mm.
So I think on that level, the alignment of all these different aspects, mind, body, soul, spirit, and heart. What do you think of that?
So,
What do you think of that definition of fulfilling?
because it's an interesting thing, because like in the idea of fulfillment, right? It's like kind of like something's like being like filled up. There's like a gap or like an emptiness, and so like you have like either like needs or whatever it is, and in from my limited understanding, you're the researcher, not me, right? But in my limited understanding, like one way to approach well-being science is you look at like what are people's like needs, right? They have the needs for like loving connection or like autonomy, competence, relatedness, whatever it is, like the needs that you like fulfill up. But that's like an interesting way. Another way to look at it is kind of coherence or alignment, right? Of these kind of different pieces that are moving towards um, a common aim or a common goal or so like in that idea of fulfillment, I guess the kind of question is like if you're looking at that instead of fulfillment, but then fulfillment instead of like filling something up, but instead like looking at in a way of like alignment, where is the kind of alignment going?
And that's where it's really personal and individual. Because when you
Mm,
talk about needs, you gave me some examples of needs. And if you look at my categories of mind, heart, body, spirit, and soul, each of those has different needs,
mm,
right? And
mm.
how do you address all of your needs? How do you hold the most important needs and make sure that none of them get shortchanged?
Mm. I have a question. Sorry.
I have a and then I just want to say, how fulfilled can you be if you're meeting some needs but not other needs?
Yeah, so that's one thing I want to ask about is as well is that have you ever read the book The End of Average by Todd Rose?
No,
Um
no, but I've heard it's a really, maybe you're the
yeah,
one who told me about it, The End of Average. Yeah.
I really enjoy the book, but he talks about kind of how like the jackiness principle, I think he calls it, which is basically that like it can, if you look at like someone's like IQ, for example, right? Two people might have the same IQ, but like their profile, if this is the average, their profile on individual aspects of their intelligence is very jagged, right? And so like spatial thinking, they might be really good, but mathematics, they're really bad. But then like vocabulary, right? And rarely do people align on the average, right? They're pretty jagged, right? And if you look at like length of body parts or like in even different aspects of intelligence, right? And so you have this like jaggedness profile, and it's like this, it connects a lot to complexity science. And one thing that I heard Todd Kashdan, have you heard of Todd Kashdan? Recently talk about was that kind of how that principle applies to well-being. And I'm curious, is that something that you noticed in your work? Is that like that, you know, in the literature that's all normative, right? Is we have all these different categories, right? But that, do you find that like the individual people that you work with usually need to fit all these categories, or do you usually find that like one person's fulfilling life is having a lot of competence at the sacrifice of autonomy, but then another person is having a lot of, sorry, yeah, a lot of autonomy at the sacrifice of relatedness or whatever it is, right? Like,
I don't think a person can be fulfilled then
no.
if they're sacrificing something really important
Mm.
for them.
Do you
And
find, sorry?
and you know, as part of your training to be a chapter leader for the Awareness, Courage, and Love Global Project, and I've been talking to you about how you really need to have all three of those qualities
Mm.
to live in alignment and to live a fulfilled life.
I remember that.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
can you think of something that doesn't fall into or doesn't require awareness, courage, or love? You because you reeled off some needs, and somebody has the need for autonomy. Well, you have to be aware that you have that need, and it takes courage to set the boundaries so that you can be autonomous. And you need to be loving to yourself, and you would need to be aware of how you're being autonomous affects other people that you're close to. And so it's like there's this continual
Mm.
working on what it is that's fulfilling. It's not a yes, my life is fulfilled or fulfilling, or no, it's not. It's a continual evaluation, assessment, and recalibration and adjustment of
Mm-hmm.
how it is that you're living.
Mm. Can I share one thing that I'm kind of connecting this to in my own mind?
Please.
Is like I've recently learned a little bit about like philosophy of science, and like there's like contextualism, like mechanism, organicism. Basically, that like you can look at like the same thing from like different angles, and like both views are true, but you're just looking at like from two different perspectives, right? And like
Right.
that guides the questions that you look at, right? One way that I had this described is really interesting is if you like look up and you have your finger upwards and you turn it counterclockwise, right? And make sure you're turning it counterclockwise, and then you move it downwards and you look it that way, it's spinning the other direction, right? And like the metaphor for that is like some scientists will be like, I have proof that it's spinning this way. And then other people are like, I have proof that it's spinning this way, right? But they're looking at the same thing, right? But just from different perspectives. And so like one way that I've heard, like you can like talk about well-being science in like needs that need to be fulfilled. I've heard other people talk about well-being. Geetan Jolly Boster-Cott, I'm butchering that name, but she created the 6 ways of well-being, and she talked about like measuring well-being as like certain activities, like how well are you in the present moment, or um, like how much do you work out, or whatever it is, or like how much do you give to others, connect with others. Um, but like one way to conceptualize well-being that it kind of looks like with awareness, courage, and love is you're looking at specific domains that encompass skills that lead to whatever fulfillment of those needs would be, right? And so not necessarily focusing on like, oh yeah, you need loving connection, right? But it's like, no, you need like awareness, courage, and love to be able to, and that will get the love and connection or autonomy, whatever it is. And by changing how you view it, the pencil, right? By like taking that view, looking at well-being as like, what can you change? I can understand kind of how you get to that aligning view of a fulfilling life is looking at, and tell me if I'm getting this right, at like um kind of the skills that you work at that would move you towards kind of the needs that you want fulfilled or whatever is important in your life.
Yes, I think you have it right. You're looking at awareness, courage, and love as skills, and yeah, skills, qualities,
I feel like they're more domains because
behaviors,
there's a lot
domains.
of like, yeah, there's like a lot of skills that can fit into awareness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then how do you aware that's an interesting thing where we landed on domains because when you work with individual people, right? I imagine that you just get a wide variety and complexity on who walks in the door, right? In the issues that they face and the things that they're going for. Is that right?
Right.
And so how, you know, you don't get like perfect squares to show up, right? Every time you get like these crazy shapes you've never seen before. And so how do you get like, I have this tool set of awareness, courage, and love, or this understanding, right? In my mental toolbox. How do you kind of like go about and make sure that you can like find the commonalities, but then also like meet the unique people right there?
It all starts with what's happening in the present moment. So as I'm talking to you, I'm aware of so much.
Mm,
I'm aware of your history. I'm aware of how connected you are to yourself and how we're connecting with each other. I'm looking at the smile on your face. I'm aware of how brilliant your mind is, and how it's just so actively putting things together. And whatever it is that is fulfilling for people, it's like you need to start in this moment.
mm.
What would you say is fulfilling for you?
This right here. This is like uh yeah, like you can tell when like I'm getting like a bit too fulfilled because I start like floating and I like forget that Mavis is in the room. So I gotta like ramp down all my connections and stuff like that. But yeah, no, that's I like describing as like this sense of like this great sense of being alive. It's not just living, but it's like being
Yeah.
alive.
So I can't imagine just like sitting there talking about fulfillment without living it in this moment.
Mm, mm,
And so it all boils down to the essence of what's happening in an interaction. And
mm, mm,
yeah, so when you were saying, how do you figure this out with all these different people? It boils down to them speaking from their hearts with awareness, courage, and love, and me meeting them
mhm.
with awareness, courage, and love. And then it expands from there.
And is that something that in training in FAP that you kind of build that sense to be able to kind of come up with reads reads in understanding what kind of feedback you're getting in the present moment from other people?
Okay, so just for people who might not know what FAP is, it's
Uh,
functional analytic psychotherapy, and it's a therapy that focuses on the authentic connection between therapist and client. And the guidelines for FAP translate to these domains of awareness, courage, and love. So what did you say about reads? Reads
reads in other people's behavior and or kind of like a
as an
I know
READS, like
yes, yeah,
reading
yeah,
other
yeah.
people's behavior. Okay. Do you
Yeah,
want to share?
I maybe like a like I don't know, signals or identifiers or like markers or I don't know, just some way of like I got the word reads because just and that's like a term that I've heard in like ACT or acceptance and commitment therapy. And where they'll talk about like what a read looks like for diffusion as compared to fusion or whatever it is. And so fusion would be like, like I'm so angry right now, blah blah blah, or like, like I feel like you're a monster, whatever it is, right? But like I'm noticing the thought that, right? That's like diffusion, right? Um, and kind of what I'm hearing from you is that like the answer kind of to recognizing the kind of unique shape that everybody is when they kind of walk into that room is by paying attention to the present moment and recognizing the unique shape that everybody is, right? And so when you kind of really pay attention to the person on the other side of the table or the person on the other side of the chair, right? I'm imagining in training functional analytic psychotherapy that it kind of helps you understand, build that awareness of what you're looking at in that present moment of what might be a lead to fulfilling life as compared to what's not.
Well, again, I would come back to this very moment of how fulfilling is this moment for them,
Mm,
for me, what's missing in this moment. And it's not so awareness isn't just, I'm not just assessing it with my mind. I'm feeling with my heart what's happening in this moment. And I'm feeling viscerally with my body, like what's happening in this moment. They're just different types of awareness. And if this person isn't like showing up fully, I can sense it. If they're like really in their heads, then they're probably not totally fulfilled. But I can't just make that assessment by myself. It's an interaction
mm.
we have.
So, mm,
Okay, so is there something that feels vulnerable for you right now to look at or to express? Because I think being fulfilled, there needs to be this element of stepping outside of your comfort zone.
are you asking me like right now, like me,
Yeah,
Ben Spaloss right now,
yeah.
vulnerable and hmm,
So I'm inviting courage from you, more
sure.
courage in this moment.
Um, I recently had uh like I'm like having thoughts about being like keen about how much connections I'm making because I've gotten feedback recently by someone who's like very high up in ACBS. They reached out to me and they said that like they think that I have a lot of potential and they said like some really kind of extraordinary things in like what they see in me and they think that that's really fantastic. Um, and they said that like I got to be cognizant of how I'm how I fill up space, right? Like, or like just making sure I'm reading the room. And so that's one thing I'm trying to be cognizant of right now. Um, is like figuring out what is like too much to share versus not too much to share and like making those connections. And what's the interesting thing is like if people like me, Ben being like, right, then like I get feedback because people are like, wow, thank you. Like, or they, like they say nice things, right? But if people get like, as the guy was saying, squirrely, right? They don't come to me, they come to the other guy, right? They tell the ACVS people, right? And so like now I'm just trying to be like cognizant and aware of that on a little bit of a new level. And it's an interesting thing, but
It's a really interesting thing, and I could just feel my heart opening to you even more
mm,
because you're saying something that you're grappling with.
yeah, definitely.
You know that you've gotten this feedback about just how incredible you are, and you need to have more awareness of how you're impacting the room.
Yeah, I don't know why, but like it's just making me smile and laugh. Like you are 100% right, and like I think you're seeing through the smile, like to the heart that like feels that, and like it just feels like genuine that like I'm smiling and enjoying myself with this conversation. So
So you're feeling really fulfilled in this moment.
yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Me too.
Like, ooh, I need like, oh my gosh, I just said like, yeah, man, to Mavis Tsai. Oh my gosh.
And my next question is, how do you do more of this? How do you bring this feeling of fulfillment to your other moments?
How do I bring?
Because that's really, I'm not expecting you to answer that question, but basically our life is filled with moments, right?
Mm.
And the more fulfilling moments you can create, the more fulfilled your life is. And yet,
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
okay.
Actually. I'm back. Yep. You were like blowing my mind. Give me a second. Yeah.
And yet you need to have those domains. You can't just like be fulfilled every moment and just live only in the moment. You need to have this awareness of a longer, larger perspective of your life. But I would just say that whatever is happening in any moment is just really, really precious, and that you want to increase the feeling of fulfillment as much as you can in any moment. And I want to thank you for creating fulfilling moments for me ever since I've met you. I just have this sense of joy whenever I interact with you.
Thank you, Mavis. This is like, wow, that's so sweet. Thank you. No, you're a little hero. You know that? Like you're fantastic. You um, it is seeing like the kind of qualities that you stand for is really inspiring, and it's funny because like I'll be like in certain situations, and I'll be like trying to like have a conversation or like talk with somebody, and I'm like, dang, like awareness, courage, and love. Like, what do I do here? And like trying to think about like what Mavis would do and stuff like that, right? And like it's actually been kind of helpful. So like um there's like a little tool I can put in my toolbox. So I can like take Mavis out and just be like play that Pokemon, you know? And so but it's been a really beautiful thing. That last thought that you just gave was really interesting. And so I was wondering if I could kind of repeat it back to you in brief and see if I got that. Is Which is a perspective of what a fulfilling life looks like that I hadn't considered before, but it's kind of this idea that our life is is a container of a bunch of different moments, that we have, right? And every moment we have has like it can be like a certain level of fulfillment, right? Like it can be really fulfilling, or we can be stuck in our heads, it can be not, right? And what kind of those skill domains or areas or whatever it is, like with awareness, courage, and love, it builds fulfilling moments, like which is like the threads that comprise the cloth of your life, right? But by teaching you skills, it creates like a feedback loop where it's not like I'm feeling really fulfilled right now because like I just spent all my money on like candy, right? And I'm just gonna have the best 4 hours until I throw it all up or whatever it is, right? Right? Like whatever it is, right? But like, or I like feel really good because I sent that really mean tweet, right? But like, no, because it has like a positive feedback loop where it carries out to these larger kind of patterns of fulfilling moments because you're showing up with awareness, courage, and love, and a nice call like this, for example, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah. And then what I was saying earlier about being aligned with
Yeah.
all the different aspects of yourself, mind, body, heart, spirit, and soul, that if you're fulfilled in the moment because you ate a bunch of candy, that's only like one narrow aspect of who you are. So that was a good summary, Ben. It's really a joy talking to you.
Oh my gosh. I love this too much. I love this too much, Mavis. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Ah, this is fantastic. There you go.